Welcome to this presentation on gifted identification in CMS for the 2021-2022 school year. I am Mrs. Nelson, the TD Catalyst teacher at your child's elementary school. Our session goals are to define giftedness, share information about the CMS gifted screening process, and to analyze the 2019-2022 CMS Gifted Education Identification rubric. Our state requires that our district develop clearly outlined procedures for identifying and serving gifted students. Standard 1 Student Identification. The LEA student identification procedures for AIG are clear, equitable, and comprehensive, and lead towards appropriate educational services. The state definition of AIG students, academically or intellectually gifted students, perform or show the potential to perform at substantially high levels of accomplishment when compared with others of their age, experiences, or environment. Academically or intellectually gifted students exhibit high performance capability in intellectual areas, specific academic fields, or in both the intellectual areas and specific academic fields. Academically or intellectually gifted students require differentiated educational services beyond those ordinarily provided by the regular educational program. Outstanding abilities are present in students from all cultural groups, across all economic strata, and in all areas of human endeavor. It's essential that we require differentiated services because AIG students have advanced learning needs, just like other students across our schools. When their needs are not met, we see them disengage, underperform, not grow, show non-teacher pleasing behaviors, or drop out. It is imperative that we identify these needs and provide services to ensure that these needs are met. CMS currently has 5 ways students can identify as gifted. These definitions align with state definitions. There are multiple pathways for identifying in a variety of capacities. Students have multiple opportunities to demonstrate areas of strength. So our district employs best practices in gifted education. All students are screened. We have universal screening. Each student receives a minimum of 3 assessment opportunities. Utilizes multiple criteria that are formal and informal, comprehensive screening, and the screening is aligned to our service model, which is the TD Catalyst model. It provides multiple pathways to student identification. This flow chart shows the timeline for gifted screening progress, or the process. The green signifies universal screening. Each student receives a minimum of COGAT, the GRS, and the MAP. Other opportunities are available once certain criteria are met. And the same is true for our 3rd grade students. An item mentioned in that screening process or timeline are the gifted rating scales. The GRS provides a standardized method for identifying children for potential gifted identification based on teacher observations and allows for identification of relative strengths and specific areas of giftedness in 6 domains: the intellectual, academic, motivation, creativity, leadership, and artistic talent. Another item in our screening process is the COGAT, previously mentioned, the Cognitive Abilities Test. This is an aptitude assessment that measures reasoning and problem-solving skills and provides information on how a child thinks. It's divided into 3 batteries: verbal, quantitative, and nonverbal. The measure of academic progress, the MAP, is also used in our universal screening process. The MAP assesses achievement in both reading and math. MAP will be used as an achievement data point for everyone. COGAT and GRS will be paired with MAP to determine gifted eligibility. And then if certain criteria are met after GRS, COGAT, and MAP, the student may have the opportunity to take the Iowa assessment, which measures achievement in reading and math, or do a TD portfolio, where systematic collection or work samples um, are collected from the student that demonstrate gifted traits and behaviors, and portfolios are scored by a team of trained TD teachers throughout the district to determine if there's evidence of the following categories: advanced language, analytical thinking, motivation, perseverance, leadership, perspective, sensitivity, humor, creativity, artistic talent. And student must meet certain criteria in order to participate in this assessment process. So, unidentified CMS second and third graders must meet one of the following criteria in order to participate in the portfolio opportunity. CMS 2019-2022 Gifted Identification Rubric. The rubric highlights are the students start earning points for aptitude and achievement scores in the 77th percentile or higher. There's a more direct path to gifted identification than there was in the past. Once a student identifies as gifted in a capacity, the process stops. They've identified. The process stops. There are multiple pathways for students to identify as gifted. This is the rubric that is used in identifying students for the gifted program. As previously mentioned, you'd see the items of the COGAT, the Iowa, GRS, portfolio, and there are multiple pathways, as you can see, for identification in the gifted program. According to this rubric, you would see, let's look at academically, intellectually gifted. The pathway to identifying would be if a student accumulates a minimum of 12 points through aptitude testing, aptitude and achievement testing, aptitude testing, and GRS percentile. So if that happens as a result of a student's assessment, it shows that they demonstrate high intellectual capacity and high academic performance, and they would be identified as academically, intellectually gifted. And here's the pathway for all the other categories. The intellectually gifted, that's the pathway. Academically gifted, the pathway. Academically gifted reading, this is the pathway. Academically gifted in math, this is the pathway. And the description of each of those labels in that column. So let's examine some student scenarios. Student scenario number one, we see the COGAT percentiles, the GRS percentiles, and the MAP percentiles. Once these results are entered for this specific student into the rubric, we see that there's a total of 12 points. And you may recall that is what was necessary there at the very top for a student to identify as intellectually gifted. So this student identifies as academically intellectually gifted with overall VQN composite in the 98th percentile. So no further assessment is required. They've identified. Number two, the COGAT, GRS, and MAP percentiles. This student does not qualify even after taking the MAP, and they do qualify to take the Iowa because they could identify as academically gifted in reading potentially. So they take the Iowa, and there are the scores listed, and the student earns 5 points with verbal aptitude percentile and reading MAP percentile, and the process stops when the results are plugged into the rubric and as the points are considered, and this student does not identify as gifted. Student scenario number three, you see the percentiles there. This student will qualify for portfolio opportunity based on GRS percentiles. Student number four, this student identifies as academically, intellectually gifted with an accumulation of 13 points through COGAT and MAP. Student number 5, the COGAT and GRS percentiles, and the screening for this student stops. They do not identify as gifted. Additional opportunities. Unidentified students may be considered for rescreening after a period of at least 24 months have passed. All decisions regarding rescreening are conducted at the school level and are determined by TD site-based committees. Multiple data points are used to make decisions. If your child is assessed in second grade and is not identified, um, they could not be screened again, rescreened until fourth grade. If your child is screened in third grade and are not identified, and if there's reason to rescreen them, they could be identified they could be assessed or rescreened in fifth grade. 24 months at least must pass between screenings. The screening process includes formal assessments, COGAT combined with achievement scores. The screening window for fourth and fifth grade students typically occurs in the winter. Thank you so much for attending this presentation. Do feel free to view it again and review the slides within it. Please complete the attendance form by going to this bit.ly typing this information in your browser. Please complete the attendance form. If you have any questions, please write them on the section of the attendance form that calls for questions. Thank you again so much. Please complete the attendance form. Thank you so much for attending.